All right. Hey, what's up, everyone? My name is Randy Kaye, and I'm the host of the Caught Up podcast. Today we have Coach Scott Woodard from Texas State University. Coach, it's great to see you. Thanks for taking the time to catch up.
Randy, you bet. It's always great.
Yeah, man. It's been a while. Run into you here and there in the summer, but any time that you and I can spend a few minutes in chat is always good for me.
You bet.
I think the last time I saw you was summer of Patriot games. You came by to say hello by the field.
Definitely. That where I'm at now, I don't recruit as much outside the state of Texas. We pretty much, I think in the 24 years she's been here, she's been out of the state to get kids about a handful of times. We've got a few from the portal right now, but it's definitely not the norm for her. We pretty much run the I-35 corridor from Houston to Austin to Dallas and get what we need.
Wow, that's something I was going to ask you about, and I'll just, is that the type of kid that you guys like, or is that convenience, or a little of both?
I think it's a little of both. I think, there's a lot of good kids in Texas, obviously.
Yeah.
Probably a little bit of difference in philosophy between myself and my sister, just because I'm used to recruiting nationwide. But I also understand from a female standpoint, it is easier to get them if they're closer to home. Probably the one big piece that we've probably expanded since I've been here is pitching, because I still feel like, there's only X number of pitchers in Texas that can get us where we want to go, and we're battling Texas, Baylor, Texas A&M, Texas Tech, North Texas, a lot of teams that are really good. And so, if you don't get that frontline kid, then I just believe there's enough pitching out in the country that we ought to be able to go find somebody else. It hasn't happened so far, although we do have a 25 commit from the state of New York that we just got verbal in January that plays for Georgia Impact for Camel.
Oh, nice.
But we've got a couple others on the radar for 26 that we're already looking at. One of them is from Arizona. So, when you're recruiting at a non-Power 5, the type of talent that you're going to get is pretty equitable in a lot of, you probably can find a lot of kids that are similar. So it's just easier to get them when they're three hours from home.
Yeah.
And then have a chance. Plus, as well as I do, she's made a name here, but Texas State still isn't a household name. Yeah. When we make the postseason, it's kind of like Grand Canyon was in basketball this weekend.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, Texas State, where's that? What's that? And so it's not as easy for us to go outside the state of Texas and go, hey, we got a great campus that has 40,000 students with a river that runs right through the middle of campus. We compete, with Texas Baylor, Texas A&M, Texas Tech every year. We play a good schedule. So I think that adds to it a little bit too.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny that you said that about Grand Canyon, because I was actually watching a softball game recently, and the commentator said, well, Grand Canyon University, he goes, I got to imagine that's a beautiful setting out there in the Grand Canyon.
Sure.
So they had no idea that it's in downtown Phoenix.
Our kids had no idea,
really?
when we were out there. Yeah, they had no idea when we said we were playing Grand Canyon.
That's funny. Yeah, right in the heart of the city, basically. But that campus is changing. It's
unbelievable, Randy. What they've done to that place since I left Phoenix is unbelievable.
Yeah, they're doing a good job. They're doing a great job, and I'm sure Coach Hayes and Coach Wente.
Yep.
From your years in coaching. Let's go back to Texas State. You said, obviously in San Marcos, you said you play a great schedule, And last Wednesday, that was, I mean, you talk about a great schedule and playing great softball. I think that was one heck of a game to watch, and that was a testament to the point that you just brought up, which is, you're competing, you're playing a great schedule, but you guys seem to actually be, you guys are winning those games right now.
We, our kids aren't afraid of those people because they're kids that they grew up playing all their life. I
Right,
mean,
right.
Texas A&M, Baylor, Texas Tech, those are all places that recruit the state of Texas heavily, and so our kids play against those kids their whole life. So, um, getting an opportunity to play them here is great because those coaches obviously don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Um, they've got good rapport with Ricky, and we always play them home and home. We've got Texas again later on in the season at Austin. We usually try and play them, every year one place.
Hmm.
We have played Texas the last couple of years, home and home, but sometimes it's in a tournament setting. Last year when we beat Texas, it was at a tournament in Austin. Um, so getting an opportunity to do that, those kids, those kids know we've got an opportunity right now with the kids we have on the field to compete with anybody in the country if we show up. And some days we still haven't shown up, and that's the world of athletics. Is obviously, on any given day, right now with as many good athletes as there are in the country in a lot of sports, you give yourself a chance to win if you play well and you stay in games. And we stayed in that game until the seventh and gave ourselves a chance.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a great game, and then not to mention, you played Texas earlier, and I think that was a close one too, right? One
One to
zero.
nothing.
Yeah, shoot. I mean, you say, pitching is everything, and obviously, it seems like you guys have it. Um, your group as well is battle tested, right? That your
We've
team
got
is battle tested.
Yes, Randy. We've got 7 kids that are on the field that have played 200 games. Um,
Wow.
you know it. It's a unique situation because of COVID. We have 2 fifth-year kids. Our third baseman and one of our pitchers, and then everybody else is, the other 5 are kids that are. We've got one that transferred from LSU, but she's a Texas kid. The rest of them have been here their whole career, and so they know. Well, and I take it back. We have one other that transferred from Texas, so we have two on the field every day that were transfers, but everybody else is homegrown. And again, I think that's a testament to what we're doing here. We've lost nobody in the portal since I've been here. Um,
Wow.
and again, a lot of it's just doing things the right way, and we're trying to develop kids and make them better. I Since I had an opportunity to be at ASU and Auburn with Clint, I believe that we can take kids who are good kids that have athletic ability and teach them to do what we want them to do. And she's been here a long time, and she's won a lot of games here, and it's a good place to be. It's a good setting, like you said, and the town is really neat, and it's a great campus, and we have great facilities, and so it it's going to be, next year we get to start over, and we've got a freshman class coming in that's very talented that is going to have to get ready to go right away. And we've got some kids that aren't getting an opportunity to play every day because of our situation that'll be ready to go next year. So, um, you know, it, it is what it is, but it all starts in the circle. And, Jessica's one of the best in the country, and she's proven that, in her 4-year career here. Again, that's a kid that could have very easily left. I guarantee you she's fielded many phone calls over the last few years from maybe not coaches, since
Right. Of
that's not
course not.
legal, but
Of course not.
some type of communication between somebody about, hey, you got to think about going somewhere else. And she's, again, I think that's part of how we're recruiting is we're recruiting kids that are loyal, and we're loyal, and we're trying to do things the right way, and I think that's a testament to what she's done here.
So when you talk about recruiting good kids with some athletic ability, and teaching them to do the things that you wanted. What are some of those things that you learned, or that whether coach does it already, um, where you're at, or that you've learned along the way that you guys try to teach?
So I think, my basic recruiting philosophy is we got to recruit kids out of the middle of the field.
Hmm.
There isn't a travel ball coach or a high school coach in the country that doesn't put their best kids in the middle of the field. Pitchers and catchers are unique. Obviously, we'd like to have catchers that hopefully can do something else, because we don't want to catch a kid, their entire career. Most of them catch way too much as it is,
Yeah.
because they're catching all through high school, and they're catching bullpens, and they're catching all summer, and I just don't believe in that. I think you got to have a couple catchers. Clint taught me he wanted a catcher in every class, and I think having four catchers is hugely important, because it allows your pitchers to be able to throw to catchers a lot during the season. Not
Hmm.
that we do it all the time, but it gives us enough where we can use a couple at a time. And like he told me, you're a foul ball and you're a foul tip and a sickness away from being in a real bind. And so, um, pitching again, if you can find a kid that can hit and they're good enough to be one of your best nine players in the lineup, so be it.
Yeah.
We haven't had that since I've been here. I think we've got, and again, the injury piece of that too. I think you're taking a huge chance, um, of taking a kid who's a really good pitcher and putting him out there and taking a chance, because there's too many factors: being
Yeah.
hit, tearing an ACL, on the bases. I mean, there's just too many other things. So, um, but after that, man, you just got to recruit the middle of the field, because everybody puts their best outfielder in center field. Everybody puts their best infielder at shortstop. Um, your most athletic kids are in the middle. And I know a lot of travel ball coaches don't like to hear that. They come up and they go, I got this really good first baseman, she's really good. And I'm like, well, if she's really good, how come you're playing her at first base?
Right.
You know, because there's some reason you put her over there. And I'm not saying first basemen aren't good, but they're not as athletic. And, if they're left handed, okay, then there's a reason. I understand that. But it's very easy to take athletes and teach them to do what you want them to do and move them around. I always use the example of Annie Lockwood. When we got her at Arizona State, she was a shortstop,
Yeah.
obviously. She moved to third base, and we already had an All American third baseman. So her junior year, she's in right field and becomes an All American, hits 20 home runs, and ties the single season home run record. And then her senior year plays every game at first base for us. So, as long as you're willing to put in time and the kids are willing to put in time, you can teach them. And, a lot of times we get into, well, I want to play shortstop. And I'm like, well, if you're the best shortstop, you'll play shortstop. But if you're not, and that's the only place you're willing to play, then the next option is to sit
Right.
and till our shortstop is gone. And that makes no sense. So, you can take kids out of the middle of the field and you can move them anywhere you want, and you're going to give yourself an opportunity. Um, the more athletic things they can do, the more options that they give themselves. And again, don't pigeonhole yourself as a recruit into playing one position. Be happy when a coach moves you around, because it means you're versatile, and it's only going to help you down the road and give you an opportunity to get on the field as soon as you can, because nobody wants to sit. I've never recruited a kid that likes watching. They have to understand that sometimes they have to pay their dues, and they become small fish in the big pond again, and that's just the way it is. And I think, unfortunately, that's why the portal's blown up the way it is, because moms and dads and kids are all impatient, and they think they're great and they're supposed to come out, and it doesn't matter what their high school career was like. It's not the same thing. It's not the same as their travel ball world. It's a totally different world, and you face better people again with what we do and our schedule and who we play. Um, and especially at our level, it's going to be very rare for us to go out and find kids as freshmen that are ready to come in and compete.
Right. Those are the exception. What about a catcher? How much emphasis do you put on, is it, in your opinion, is it catching first? I mean, everybody would love to have a catcher that hits, 20 home runs a year. But is it a catcher that deep catcher first makes a pitcher better, controls the game
And I'll
better.
tell you what, Randy, it's hard at our level again because if you're finding a kid that can be a defensive catcher and throw people out and that can hit, it's gonna be hard for us to get them, man.
Mm,
Because everybody in the country is looking for one that can hit and catch.
yeah,
Obviously, in Major League Baseball, it's defense first. You got to be a catcher. If you add anything to the offense, so be it. Probably, and again, I think that's why, getting a catcher in every class and not playing just one probably gives us some days, and it's what we have right now. When our catcher's not catching, she's DPing. Our
mhm,
best catchers is, our other catcher, and she doesn't DP when she catches when she's not playing, but she's our best defensive catcher and throws extremely well. So we kind of have to mix and match. I think it definite. Every year when I go on the road, I'm looking for that kid that can do both, but it's still difficult to find. Again, arm strength is arm strength. You can improve it with technique. You can improve it with long toss and doing some things, but there's still a ceiling there. And finding a kid that can give you a chance to throw people out. I think we've kind of even the playing field this year with adding that to the reviewable plays because everybody in the country now is using it.
yeah,
So kids are. It's we've got kids that can really run, and you can tell that we've even us. I mean, our kids are a little more hesitant. We've got some that we let run on their own, and they're still a little hesitant about being called early because they're afraid we're going to be mad. Everybody's using it as a challenge now in situations where games are close. I've seen at least a handful already of home runs being taken back because the runner at first base left too early, and it had nothing to do with the play. And
yeah,
it's just become a part of the weapon now. And
yeah,
so. Um, Probably not going to be as important if they don't change the rule for catchers because you're probably not pushing the envelope as much, even though we're still talking about trying to make sure that we're on time but not be real early. But I can give you an example. We had a kid that was called out this year for leaving the bag early, and the umpires came back and said that she was probably an inch or two off the bag.
wow.
And I'm like,
That's
and
right,
so
because you don't see it. You
yeah,
don't see
human
the
eye ain't
replay.
going to catch that. I mean, there's no
Yeah,
possible way.
yeah,
You
but
know,
even the replay, like,
right,
obviously the home audience
right,
sometimes gets to see it,
right.
but you're not, you're just taking their word for it.
Yep.
Yeah, wow. How do you feel about the replay? I mean, aside from that, what you just described as far as it being a little bit of a hindrance or a nuisance, how do you feel about it?
Well, I think anytime you make a rule, you have to enforce it. And, the rules committee, I've been on that thing before. It's a tough gig.
Mhm.
Um, you're never going to make everybody happy. You know, Pitching's always been the topic of debate, and now we're letting them leap. And I haven't seen a single illegal pitch called this year. It's freed them up a little bit. Fine. Obviously we have the controversy of a lot of people felt like there were pitchers who weren't doing it right and weren't being called. And so, let's just make it easy. It's the international rule. So, kids, if they keep playing or if they, get a chance to play on the national team, they don't have to worry about it. So, you know, I, I, I don't really care one way or another. I think to me, there was more complaining about the slapper part of the foot being out of the box last year than there was anything else. And that would have been the one thing probably that had I had an opportunity to say what I wanted, I think that one's more. We use the lines in softball as being okay and everything now except for that. Now if you're on it but you're over it, you're out. Well, in all the other sports, if you're on it, if the ball hits on it, the foul pole is fair. I mean that. So
Yeah, that's a good
to me,
point.
that would be the one right now. I also agree that I don't understand why a slapper should have to step out of the box to hit. I've never understood that from prior years on why they were able to step in front of home plate and be able to hit when a regular hitter doesn't. Um, if your technique is good, you should have plate coverage no matter what. And you
Mhm.
should be able to cover, with a 33-inch bat, all you need to cover with a 17-inch plate. So I understand that. I think we're nitpicking a little bit when we say that the whole foot has to be inside the box, and then we get the same problem with the box that's gone within an inning. And, now we've given the umpires way too many things to look at. We're worried about balls and strikes, but we're making them watch the pitcher. We're worried about pitching in 20 seconds. We're worried about the batter stepping over the line. I mean, these are human beings,
Yeah.
and to tell a home plate umpire to be good on balls and strikes and then worry about all that stuff is asinine. It makes no sense.
Yeah. How do you feel about I mean, you kind of explained how you felt about the leaping, but are you gonna recruit those types of kids? Will it be something that will deter you guys from a kid if she leaps?
Well, the good thing for me is I don't recruit pitchers at all.
Right.
So, I don't have any say so in our pitchers.
Gotcha.
Our pitching coach and Ricky handle all that. Um,
If you
obviously,
did, what are your thoughts?
um, again, I don't know that it's a benefit or non-benefit. Everything I've been taught and told that when you're in the air, you lose force. I mean, it'd be like hitting
Mhm.
with your feet off the ground. So I'm not sure that you want to teach kids to be airbound and release the ball. I
Yeah.
think and then again, I think if we're landing and we're using replan, it's still illegal. So, I still think people ought to be teaching kids to do things correctly. Um, so I don't know. I mean, I know those kids that have been questioned on not being legal and being able to get away with it. Um, it looked like they had an advantage to me.
Yeah.
I mean, their careers were really good,
Yeah.
and some of them are
Yeah.
still pitching, and they're still really good. So,
Right.
I mean, there obviously must be something. Maybe the rise ball. I don't, because it just seems like most of them. It's when the ball's going up. I think when the
Mhm.
ball's going down, you're obviously forcing your body downward. So I don't think that's as big of an issue. But seems to me like people that make the ball, that want the ball spinning upwards, it must be somewhat of an advantage.
Have you seen anybody called for replanting that was a leaping pitcher?
No, no.
Yeah.
And
We
there's
we
still some
faced one.
questions. We've questioned some, but
Mhm.
all we've gotten is, that's not what's happening. So,
There was a tournament just recently in Phoenix, and, you know Bobby from Breakers?
yep,
He's got a couple of pitchers that I mean, we hadn't seen them, and someone had mentioned to me that, "Hey, you gotta wait till you see his pitchers because 'cause he's got a pretty good team." And those kids were pretty good, and the one that we saw, I mean, it was so noticeable to everyone, especially when they weren't aware of the rule.
right,
And our kids, I mean, immediately it was a thing, and
yeah,
it impacted the game
right,
from a standpoint of we let that move or non-call get in our heads at the
right,
plate.
sure, yeah. Well, and I
So,
think again that's going to be where they're going to start pushing the envelope again.
yeah,
You know, it'll be, oh well, now they're not calling, so you might as well, you know, gain a couple feet and then go. And so I don't know. I again, it's a tough deal, and we're asking umpires to do a lot. It seems to me like, again, in our game, we have three umpires. In the postseason, they have four umpires. So, somebody on the field ought to be able to see that doesn't have something to do, and I think people are getting upset with the umpire at second base calling the slappers out of the box. I'm like, they're the ones that should be calling it. They have the best view, and they're not worried about it being a ball or a strike. I got no
right.
problem with that.
Yeah,
They're lined up behind second base, whether you have three or four, and they see it happen, then I don't have any problem with them calling it. That's why they're out there.
yeah.
So, again, being on that rules committee for 4 years, um, I think again, we coach a sport where we've gone overboard with the rules. Our rule book is twice as big as baseball's. We analyze everything. We expect, after my first year, I was like, well, this will be great. The next 3 years, we shouldn't have to do anything, right? And they were like, oh no, next year there'll be a million other, and I'm like, I don't understand it, and I was in it when bat testing and obstruction were the two biggies, and I'm like, why can't we just make it like baseball? Feet first to the bag. You can't block the bag. Oh no, we're not baseball. We're our own sport. I'm like, I don't care what sport you are. If the rule works,
Yeah.
then
Why
why
not
aren't we
adopt it?
using it? Why are we making umpires figure out if the ball's caught, if they're almost ready to catch it, if it's about to be caught, if we got to give them this much of the plate now. Well, how much is that? Well, it's the front edge, and I'm like, it's just too many things for people to worry about, and it's always going to be human error. And
Mhm.
again, those people are human. I've never had a problem with umpires because it's not what they do for a living. I've never met an umpire that doesn't try and do the best job that they can do,
Right.
you know? And I've never met one that blatantly cheated either, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And do I think that if you constantly harass umpires and you're constantly on umpires and you're constantly complaining that human nature means every close call they're probably gonna go against you? Heck yeah. I understand that,
Yeah.
you know? So
Yeah.
the rules are difficult, and to just keep adding more rules, you know, to keep adding. We got foul poles that are 10 feet high, and we got people hitting the ball 80, 90, 100 feet over a fence, and then they're supposed to tell whether it's fair or foul with a 10-foot high pole. I'm like, it's impossible.
Yeah.
At Auburn, we had 40-foot high poles, and there were still balls going over the top where you still weren't sure. You know,
Wow.
so it is what it is, and the game's obviously progressing. Um, we have better athletes, we have better equipment, they're better prepared. You guys are doing a much better job of getting kids ready. Um, some of you, not all of
So
you, some of you are teaching.
what
Go
it's
ahead.
hard.
Yeah,
As you know, what speaking of that, what can a travel ball coach right now do to try to get kids ready? Because I'll just tell you this, some years ago, we do everything we can. I try really hard to, you know, you know, teach and practice on a regular basis and those types of things. And I had to tell a coach one time, I'm like, this kid isn't going to be ready.
right.
I don't know what else to do. And as well as I do, a lot of times it starts at home.
Sure.
And the accountability piece. And
Right.
I said, this kid isn't going to be ready. And this coach looked at me and said, you just keep doing what you're doing. You play the schedule, you practice, you do the things that you've been doing,
Right.
and they're either going to make it. That kid's either going to make it or they won't.
Right.
And because you'll never be able to put the amount of pressure and stress on them that I can.
Right. Yeah.
So, but what can we do? I mean, is that really it in a nutshell? I mean,
So to me, the things that make it most difficult is that you guys have been built now in the travel ball world into, again, I'm talking about a percentage, okay?
sure,
Where you're going out and you're recruiting the best kids that you can find, and it doesn't matter where they're at. And so they're showing up on Friday and they're playing Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and you don't see them again till the next week. There's no practice. Obviously, the showcases are difficult because there's no wins and losses, and we talk about that all the time as coaches. Where kids, I want to recruit kids to play in programs that win
yeah,
because they learn how to win. And so when I'm looking at two kids, I'm going to take the kid that has been in programs that's been successful
hmm
because they're more about we and less about I. And in our world, we still play a team sport. It still takes we's instead of I's. Um, I think again where we're missing here's a perfect example. So we cut the recruiting back because we felt like one for us it was too much because we had to be out all the time because everybody else was. So we shrank the fall. The summer's easy because once it goes after the World Series, it's pretty much go, and then it finishes at nationals, and most of us have a couple weeks after that before school starts again. And so, but in the fall we shrank it to 6 weeks. And we specified those 6 weeks and made it real simple, the middle of October till the weekend before Thanksgiving. Great. Made it easy. Now, us as coaches with our fall seasons, we can either start earlier or, in our case, some days I miss, I leave when we have a fall game and I just go recruit. Now the choice is up to the coaches. But as soon as we did that, again, we were trying to do it to help you guys and the athletes to where they weren't playing 24/7, 365.
Right.
But within a year or two, you guys went right back to playing starting on Labor Day.
Yeah.
And I'm not kidding, Randy. Down here, as PGF ends, and then I start reading about PGF or Alliance ends, and then I start reading about tryouts next weekend.
Yep.
I'm like, that's the second week of August. We're already back to starting again and picking our teams, and there was no break. And then, well, we're going to go ahead and play because the kids need to play. No, they don't need to play. They need to practice. They need to learn. They need to work on fundamentals. If I could tell you two things, one would be base running, the other one would be teaching kids to throw.
Yeah.
I tell people everywhere I go, everywhere I speak, every camp I work, the most undertaught thing there is teaching kids to throw the ball correctly and making the ball spin 12-6.
It's
Nobody
funny
teaches it.
because you can go out and you can tell them till you're blue in the face, and I think a lot of coaches try to do that, and you're right, probably don't spend near enough time or hold the kids as accountable enough, but
Right.
it just seems like those are things that again are not important to the player, and
Right.
it goes back to, well, hey, first week of September we should be playing, because we got to get going. We got to get going. And I think that excitement or that pressure to go
Mm-hmm.
and to skip the throwing
You're
part,
right.
and let's just it's parent driven and it's culture driven.
Right.
And yeah, no, I'm glad you're saying that because obviously I do think that we get back from PGF, because I'll tell you this: the minute we play whatever tournament, PGF Alliance, wherever we're at, the minute we're done, um, the grind of trying to put your team back together is about a week, um, on the phone, communicating, running out, meeting with kids, talking to families. I mean, it's a grind, and then you try to hold a tryout or you do something to kind of finalize everything, and then yes, I agree, we should shut down, but a lot of teams don't.
Right.
And it's pressure from the outside, because then
Right.
you got these families going, well, so and so is playing
Playing.
and this
Yeah.
team's doing this, and
Right.
it's like, I agree 100%. I think we should all shut down for most of September.
Right. I watched Julia Cottrell the other night, the catcher at A&M. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
before the game.
Yep.
All right. She did her bullpen. She warmed up the pitcher. She came over to our foul line, Randy, and was throwing long toss from our foul line to their foul line. And I'm not talking about next to the infield. I'm talking about all the way from our bullpen to her bullpen.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. And she's one of the best catchers in the country, and her arm strength is phenomenal. And I just try and emphasize, like, again, our field is 225 in center field. We want to make two throws. They each got to be 112 feet, and both need to be accurate. And if the ball isn't spinning right, neither one are going to be accurate. Neither one of them are going to be able to do it. And I go back to most coaches, it's go warm up, go get loose. That's what throwing is. For us, we start practice. That's our start of practice every single day. I have cones, I have different balls, I have different weights. It's a requirement. And through that throwing progression out to 150 feet every single day, we work back and we work on skill pieces. We work on relays. We work on long hops. We work on things that are important to the game, but we're also learning to make the ball spin correct. And I understand when a little girl picks up a ball at her size and her age, and those balls are too big. All fall, we still throw baseballs here.
Yeah.
And I look at them, and most kids are 5-fingered, so they put their whole hand on the ball. So there's no way to make the ball spin 12-6 when 4 are on top and 1's underneath. So it automatically is going to tilt on them. It's automatically going to spin like a bullet. And, and it's an everyday hassle, even with our kids that know that it's a priority, where I stand out there behind them and tell them that the ball still isn't spinning correctly. You're still not using your left side. You're still not pulling with your glove to your chest, you know. And again, when those things, so especially outfielders, when it comes down to who's in and who's out and who's going and who's not, I understand everybody goes with the offense. It's the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
If you can hit, you're going to play. I understand that. But if you can be good on defense and you can learn to do the little things and you can learn to play catch, we spend a lot of time playing catch. We spend a lot of drills in the infield where we're throwing base to base and we're reverse pivoting, we're inside turning and doing things where we just got to learn to play catch and be athletic and be accurate and do things, over 80% of the errors that are made in our game are made throwing, not catching. Because people can't play catch because they don't make it a priority.
Right. How long does that take? What is your throwing progression? How long does that take you each practice?
8 minutes.
8 minutes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because I don't let them stand up there and talk about last night or prom or their boyfriend it's time to practice. And so, we start out at 30 feet and we throw 5 balls. Boom, 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 boom. You want to act like a pitcher? You want to do whatever? It doesn't matter. But after 5, you're back to 60. And then after 5 more, you're back to 90. So we're only throwing the ball about 50 or 60 times.
Because I think is that after your warm or no?
No.
Do you do bands or anything before?
Oh yeah. That's after our full warm up. Again, okay. Our strength and conditioning and our trainers and stuff do a great job of doing all the dynamic stuff and doing bands and all that. So they're ready to go. I could eliminate the 30 really. We could start at 60 for that matter, but I give them a little freedom. And then they start working back in, and then infielders are working on relay turns, outfielders are working on long hops. Everybody that's catching is working on tagging. So as they work back in, and then we work down arm angle when we get back in. Work on throwing on the run a little bit when we get back in. Outfielders. Here's an example of things that I teach that aren't being taught to anybody. I teach the outfielders to backhand. I don't want them banana and getting around the ball because it takes too damn long. And one thing Casey Myers taught me, and that's the smartest man I've ever known, is straight lines are still the most important part of every game. So instead of having an outfielder banana around the ball to get their body around it, they need to go on a straight line and backhand the ball and cut down the distance that they have to throw it.
Wow.
So we work backhands. We work reverse pivot in the outfield. Again, in our game, nobody teaches reverse pivot. In the men's game, everybody teaches reverse pivot in the outfield. If a ball's to our outfielder's glove side, we're reverse pivoting to every base because it's always quicker. I only have to take one step to get my weight transferred and get it going back the other way.
Yeah. Get that head around and push.
Right. But I teach it from day one, immediately. And I know it's something I'm going to have to start to teach because I know no one else teaches it. So it's an automatic. Now, kids learn to do it on their own. If they're running full speed to their glove side and they have to reach to catch it, it becomes automatic for them. They do that automatic. I'm like, that's my point. You can do it, but you only do it when you're running and you reach, and then you stop and then you reverse pivot because that's faster than trying to stop your body and get your whole body turned around. But I teach it for everything. Because I lost a conference championship one time with a kid catching the ball out here square, and their eyes weren't behind the ball. So now we don't worry about that. We turn our bodies to our glove side and we let the ball fall into it. We reverse pivot and throw the ball back into the infield.
On every ball.
Every single ball is to their glove side.
To their glove side.
Unless they know 100% they can get around it.
They can get behind it and be moving forward. But otherwise,
and they got to be moving forward. If they're having to get around it by bananing, then it's not part of what I teach. And again, arm strength, why it becomes important, we use no cutoff to second base ever from anywhere on our field. All of our kids, when they catch the ball, if we're throwing the ball to second base, one hop the ball to second baseman. And yet we pick up, it's happened 3 times this year. Left fielder gets a routine base hit, throws the 10-foot lob to the shortstop, and we're standing at second base by the time they get it in because nobody expects it. Well, I'm not taking that chance. Plus, I want my outfielders making throws that when it becomes important, one time a game, when I have to be able to make a play, and all I've done is flip the ball 10 feet to my cutoff man every single time, I can't do it. So we're getting reps. Every base hit that gets hit to our outfield, we're getting reps because we throw the ball to the bag on every single one. I don't waste a cutoff because I have kids that are athletic enough that a left fielder shouldn't have to use a cutoff to third base ever. It's not that
Man.
far,
when you talk about a base hit, and I'll tell you right now, I'm guilty of it. I'm yelling at my shortstop, get out there and get that ball.
Right.
She doesn't need to throw it all the way in. But
Right.
the reasoning and for the reason that you teach it to me is, dude, that's money.
Yeah,
Gosh.
and again, the right fielder's not going to back up on a routine base hit to left field because they know it's just going to get thrown and get thrown. No, I want them backing up every single play because I want them to expect to have to be there. They know that we're going to throw it. I said, if you're one hopping it, our infielders will catch it. I promise. You won't have to worry about it. We get beat 2-1 in the regionals last year. And again, I preach it every day about making the ball bounce from the outfield every day. We're ahead 1-0 in the seventh inning against A&M. We get a blooper to right. It's not really the right center field, but the center fielder's going to her left. And the runner tries to go first to third, and we got her by 20 feet, and we throw the ball into the dugout. And they tie the game, and we get beat 2-1 in 8 innings. And just the same outfielder, Friday or Saturday, threw a girl out at third base. Oh, yeah. No, it was. It was against A&M. Same girl.
On Wednesday?
Yeah, same girl. They had runners at first and second. It was a base hit up the middle. We threw to third base, one hop, boom, innings over. They got the run. So what? Because I predicate my whole defense on keeping away from big innings.
Yeah.
We give up one run. So what? I don't care. We're going to turn a million double plays. First and third, we'll give up the one run. We're going to turn a double play. So again, those are things that I don't expect you guys to have to teach, but we've given up on that. I think a lot of times our infielders come in, they're always looking for the easy out. I'm like, no, we're looking for the best out every single time. Runner at second base. Girl does her job and hits the ball to the other side of the field. Okay? If it's a one hopper to the first baseman, we're not jogging over to first base with throwing the girl out at third. Because we work on it. We expect it we every single day. We're not just going to give that base up because they did their job.
Yeah.
But because people can't catch and throw and they don't trust each other, we'll run people into the ground. We will run people into the ground because, and again, there are coaches in our game that teach it, throw it to the shortstop or second baseman every time. Fine. But my problem with that is, how many times does the shortstop or second baseman have their entire back to the infield and not have any idea what's going on?
100% of the time.
So we back our cuts deep enough to where they can see the people in front of them.
Yeah.
Now, if they need to cut it, they can because the runner's not coming. If the runner's already passed them, they're going to cut it because they know they're not going to have a play there and they're going to look for a secondary out. But I expect our kids to be athletes, not throw the ball 10 feet.
Right.
And we practice it every day because we throw every day with intent.
What do you ever have kids at all? My arms hurt today. I mean, obviously you guys take care of that stuff, strength and conditioning wise, right?
Right. And again, I build it. I don't make them start, but that's why we throw baseballs. Again, easier, less tension, easier to be able to get the ball in the air and make it do things. So I do it gradually through the course of the beginning. You got to remember, we also have 8 hours a week for about a month before we get into team. And so we really emphasize the throwing piece during those 4 hours of individual work every week that we get. And again, I don't wait. I don't wait, get loose, and then we're going to start our 20 minutes. I use 8 minutes for the first couple to make sure they know what we're doing. And I either color it, the cones by color, or I put the ball next to the cone that I want them to use for that. We've got softballs that are lighter than softballs. We got baseballs that are heavier than baseballs that are the weight of a softball. So I try and build the arm strength first. Yeah. But I do the same thing. I make them, long toss from foul line to foul line and put the ball in the air like a pitcher does. Everybody's doing it with people, but they're not doing it with everybody, And so I know I don't have anybody on my team that can throw the ball 150 feet on the line. I don't care. That's not the objective, to throw the ball 150 feet on the line. If you can, great. That's awesome. The objective is for you to be able to throw it 112 feet on the line. because that's the farthest part of our park before the next person has to catch it and throw it 112 feet.
Yeah.
So again, when kids warm up, I watch them. I go to 200 games a year. They throw to 60, 70 feet, and that's it. Okay, I'm loose. I'm like, yeah, but that's not the objective of what we're trying to do here. We're trying to make your arm strength stronger. So when you have to be able to throw somebody out, I'm a big 6-inch guy. How many outs in a 42 out game, 7 innings, 3 outs each team? How many outs are by 6 inches? There's a lot of them. Well, that arm strength is different in 6 inches on plays at second base, throwing somebody out, on plays from the outfield, throwing somebody out, on plays bang, bang at first base. That 6 inches is different. And then I'll flip flop it for you on the base running. That's why we emphasize the shit out of base running.
Yeah.
How many times are you out or safe in a game? By foot, by 12 inches. You could have picked up 12 inches in a lot of places. We don't need that big old giant bell curve at first base. Why do we use that? We're still wasting feet. Well, it makes a straight line to second. I don't care you didn't make a straight line to first. I want you to make as straight a line as you can to both. Because 1 foot could be the difference in out or safe. So, wow. Emphasizing base running, again, we spend 1 million hours on base running. We prioritize it right after throwing. We do base running pieces every day. And I emphasize whatever piece, and I vary it to try and keep it so that it's not monotonous. Going first, third, going second to home on a ground ball with 2 outs and not slowing down and making them have to make plays in case they're safe at first base. Understanding, again, not letting the runner at second base ever tag, or the second baseman ever tag you, ever. There's never an excuse to be tagged by a second baseman, ever. Let them chase you to the pitcher's mound. That's fine. They'll chase you. They'll never get you out at first base. And most of them will. They won't. You're out of the base path. I can throw to first base. They don't,
It's not a comfortable move to guess in that situation.
Right.
For that second baseman. Yeah.
Again, we're not gonna get doubled up on line drives. We're not gonna freeze. We're gonna start back every single time. And if they get us out at second base, okay, fine. They got 1 out, but we're never gonna get double. We're not giving up 2 outs. But those have to be emphasized, and they have to be something more than just it happens and then you say something to it. It has to be repped over and over and over and over. And that's why I love coaching first base. People always allow, they just put people at first base. I'm like, there's a whole list of things at first base that good first base coaches ought to be doing with people. Just stick somebody over there and tell them, how many outs or good job or give them a candy or whatever. Hey, there's a million things that should be going on over there.
Hold the elbow guard.
Yeah. And I do that well too.
Real quick, so 8 minutes of throwing. Coach Eli, you know Eli Guinness.
Uh-huh.
So Coach Eli has implemented this little running drill that we do almost every practice now, and honestly, I use it a lot in high school now. It's about 8 or 10 minutes of base running from each base, and it's a little program that we've been doing. But how much time do you spend doing base running each day?
It's about the same, 8 or 10. But we always finish the end of practice with situations for the most part. I mean,
I remember that. Yeah.
Again, that's a Coach Myers deal. Split up into 3 groups. We do 5 or 6 situations every single day. We do the same situation all the way through the lineup. So we get a lot of reps every day at the end of practice. And again, the first thing I talk about before each group with the runner at first base, don't let the second baseman tag you. Start back on the line drive. It's just the start of every single group. Boom, 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 boom. So that we're reemphasizing it every single day and make sure that they understand, and runners at third base with less than 2 outs, we need to score them 80% of the time. That's got to be worked on. That can't just be this round of BP, because I know how kids get in BP. The hell with that. I'm just going to see how far I can hit it. So
Scott, let me ask you this. So I'm 100% in agreement with you. Like we have had more kids left at third base with less than 2 outs, and everybody says it. Hey, shorten up, hit the ball to the right side. And I have tried so hard to get kids to understand what that means and what that feels like.
Right.
Like, is there anything else that you do? I mean, I was talking to somebody the other day, and I'm like, I'm about ready just to get them all in bat lag
Right.
and just have them on their front foot basically, and just
Right.
literally
Just play
leverage the
pepper.
bat
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
But you know how ridiculous that would probably look?
Right.
But if it scores us a couple runs, a weekend, and gives us an opportunity, then but what do you do in order to talk about something like that? Like we call it an important swing.
Yeah. And it,
Um
unfortunately, Randy, it doesn't always translate here. Sure as heck,
yeah.
we'll do it, and then the first batter will hit one hopper to the third baseman. And I'm
Yeah.
like, so that was your attempt at trying to hit a ball in the middle of the field,
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
again, we don't teach it, we don't talk about it, we don't make them understand what you're supposed to do to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And you're right. I have to learn to be barrel accurate and how to control the barrel. And most kids aren't, because again, all we care about is how far we can hit it, because mom and dad are going to be happy and we're going to post on social media with our ball in our hand about how far we hit it,
Yep.
and we're going to pay $100 a session to a hitting guy that's going to teach launch angle, that's going to take a 100-pound female and teach her to hit the ball in the air. And
Yeah.
I'm like, we're wasting our time here.
Yeah.
Hitting to me is in three phases. You got to learn to control the barrel. You got to learn to be able to hit the ball where you want to hit it. Once you learn to do that, then we can progress. We can start learning to leverage and trying to drive balls into gaps. So now we'll become your doubles type hitter.
Yeah.
We can stay back a little bit. We can look for balls, on one side of the plate or the other. We can look for pitches that, are drivable. And then once we do both of those and we get into 2-0, 3-1 counts, and we want to try and leverage things, and we want to take a little bigger swing, and we want to try and drop the barrel head, fine. But in our game, we're not teaching that, Randy. And so we don't get kids to phase three very often. There are some.
Yeah.
There are those of you out there that are teaching kids to do things correctly, and that have that type of kid that's athletic enough to do it. But to take a 120-pound female and start teaching her at 12 years old to try and lift the ball makes no sense to me. Because, again, national championships and World Series appearances at Arizona State and at Auburn were taught hitting the ball on the ground. Line drives, ground ball. And even watch Major Leagues. In 162 games, those guys are trying to hit the ball 500 feet, and as soon as it gets to postseason, all of a sudden you see guys taking the ball back up the middle, hitting the ball the other way, because they can. But that's not how they're paid. They get those big salaries to see how far they can hit it. So for 162 games, they just see how far they can hit it. But as soon as it becomes important, bang, all of a sudden, ground balls up the middle, hitting the ball, with runners at third base, trying to score runners. The whole game changes. But again, that's not fun for mom and dad, and they're not paying you, and my kid's never going to get recruited. The heck they won't. They'll get recruited 100 times more if I go and watch a kid with a runner at third base, shorten the thing up, and hit a ground ball in the middle and be happy about it.
With some intention, right?
Right. And not go to the dugout and put their head down and be mad, and mom and dad are pacing around in the bleachers because they didn't get a hit.
Scott, when you talk about barrel control, what exactly, in your opinion, where does that start? Does that start with the foundation?
Yeah, I think you have to learn how to manipulate the barrel and be able to do what you want with it. Because you were talking about making a bat leg and getting inside. You have to learn to do that. That isn't something that you want to teach all the time, but you need to be able to do it. I remember
Arizona to get ready,
right? Yeah, I remember at Arizona State, Sam Parlick could take a ball that was in the river to her hands and hit the ball to second base every single time with the runner at third base, every single time. Yep. That's not what you want her doing, except in that situation, but she knew how to control the barrel, Yep. And you can find out easy. Take your screens and put them out there all over the field. And just tell a kid to put the ball on the tee and hit the ball to that screen, hit the ball to that screen, hit a line drive to the shortstop. They go through a whole
without
bucket.
moving.
Yeah, they'll go a whole bucket. And you can stand however I don't care how you stand in the box, because that's still about barrel accuracy and being able to manipulate the barrel.
Yeah.
Balls over here, pop up. I'm like, the ball's not even moving and you can't do it. So how are we going to do it against 65, 68?
Right, with some pressure. So if you were coaching a travel ball team right now, what would you like? You obviously, I know you said base running and throwing, But from an offensive or from a hitting standpoint, like what would you teach to get that barrel control, and what would you teach to be able to hit the ball where you want it?
So I think part of what happens, and we're as guilty as anybody, every time you step in the box for a round of BP, there should be an intention to it.
Mm-hmm.
Every single time. This round, we're trying to move the runner. This round, we're trying to hit and run. This round, we're trying to hit gap to gap. This round, we're going with our 2-strike approach, and we're just trying to be barrel accurate and put the ball in play. We don't do that enough. It's take 10 cuts, take these cuts over here, go do center toss, go hit off the tee.
Yeah.
I just think every single time that you swing the bat, and I preach it here, even though Ricky's in charge of the hitting, I spend a lot of hours in there because I throw a lot, about there needs to be some intent with what you're doing for the whole round, and do the whole round the same way.
Yeah.
So that you learn to make adjustments, because live at-bats are one-pitch adjustments. I'm early. I'm off the fist. I didn't get there. It's a one-pitch adjustment. I was underneath. I got to be on top. But when you do it and you don't do it repetitively, and it's not a part of what you do every single time that you grab a bat, there's no hope in learning to do it. And then as coaches, we're like, do it. Well, we haven't repped it. We haven't made it a priority. We don't make it an important situation,
Yeah.
Why do we swing at changeups, Randy? Why do we less than 2 strikes?
Right.
And then with 2 strikes, we stand there frozen and let it be called for strike 3. I'm like,
yeah. Well, when you ask them though, you're like, hey, were you hunting change? They're like, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
Right. Yeah.
Whatever.
So I just think that it's important in every phase of the game at a practice, and that's again why I believe practice is so important, that everything that you're doing, there's an intent. We're not just fielding 25 ground balls. That doesn't do anything for you.
Yeah.
I want every one of these balls fielded on the second hop. Now I'm actually focusing on something. I either have to come forward and get it on the short hop, I have to drop step and catch it on the long hop, I have to move my feet. I mean, I handled the defense, and I'm super proud. Last year, 6'4", I had the number one defensive player in the country, and I had the number 4 outfielder in the country. According to the stat metrics from 6'4". And again, why? Because we emphasize the crap out of playing defense. And we don't just go out there, okay, today I'm going to hit you fly balls and you're going to catch them. No.
Right.
Today I'm going to hit you a million line drives right at you and make you read whether it's above your eyes or below, so you know whether to come or sink. I'm going to hit you a million balls to your backhand side, and you're going to close the distance and you're going to beat it to that cone, so that you've cut down the throwing distance, so that you learn to backhand, so that you trust the backhand, so that you know you can backhand when you have to. There's an intent to everything that we do, not just go hit them some fly balls, go hit them some ground balls and get them ready. That's not getting them ready. I put a watch on our kids a lot. We're not just fielding the ground ball. You're throwing the ball from your position to first base in less than 3 seconds. So to me, I guess it would be more that than anything else. Is it make your practices all be with intent, so that everything that they're doing is as close to game-like as can be and as fast-paced as can be, so that they're used to doing it at that pace. Hitting a ground ball and having the kids stand there and wait for it to bounce 6 times and catch it is of no value, because that's not going to translate in the game. They're going to be safe.
Yeah. And we're all guilty of that.
Well, again, I think
some degree,
number of people helping you and, what you've got. And again, when you have kids from all over, you get 6 people at practice. It just doesn't work, And
yeah.
So again, I realize that a lot of what's happened with you guys, and it's not just our sport, it's every sport, it's turned into a business. And I understand that. And the parents, it's turned into a business because they're paying all that money and they want a product. But again, most of the coaches on our side at the college level are very adamant about what we would like to see you do and how to do it, and not play so much and practice more and emphasize base running and teach kids to throw and how to control the barrel. And, you know, um, the closer their game is to being able to translate and do all that, the less stressful their freshman year is, because it already is terrible.
Yeah.
It's terrible as a freshman. You had two girls,
Yep.
you know that. You know that
Yep. Yep.
it's hard. And the more things that I can do well, the harder I work, and the more I understand about doing things with a purpose, the easier that transition becomes.
What how does a kid from Arizona, since you don't recruit very much out of state, what is the best opportunity for a player that maybe has the ability to play for you guys?
So as you
What is
know, having been in Silver City and in Phoenix, I have a lot of former players in the area, tons of them.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
A lot of them
Yep.
have kids now that are at that age.
Yes.
I've had them all out here because they all, and again, I appreciate it. They all want to play. They know that I'm going to take care of their daughters.
Yeah.
And so they come to camp because, Randy, I still believe the best way to be seen and the best way to be recognized is you have to go to camps. For me to go watch you play one time this summer for 6 innings and tell you whether or not you have kids that can play or not is stupid, because I may get 2 at-bats and 1 ground ball.
Yep.
I go to ID. I go to watch warm-ups because I want to see them throw. I go to watch how they handle themselves when they're frustrated, because we play a game of frustration. I
Yep.
go not to watch outcomes ever, except in those small situations like runner at third base, less than 2 outs, bottom of the seventh. You're at the plate. How do you handle it? Are you nice and loose? Or are you so tense that you're scared to death?
Yeah.
Um, but we do one camp in June where we do an overnight we do a 3-day camp. I'm going to get 16 hours of instruction with the kid. I'm going to know that kid because you know how I am. I love to talk. I'm going to be out there every second, and I'm going to be with them, and I'm going to be moving around, and I'm going to be joking, and I'm going to be talking, and I'm going to know a lot about that kid.
Yeah.
But I'm also going to tell them at the end of 16 hours whether or not I think they can play at Texas State or not, because I don't want to waste their time and energy. I
Yep.
don't want them to get their hopes up. Well, my mom played for you, and she thought you were the greatest coach in the world, and she really wants me to play at Texas State. And I'm like, well, first of all, it's $38,000. And my sister's very acute to that, and why we like to stay in state, because we can spend our money more wisely and we can give kids more money. And it's going to cost you and your parents probably normally at least half of that to come to Texas State. And it may be a year or two before you're ready to get on the field. And so, but believe me, again, we've had them. Told you, we've had a pitcher out here from Arizona twice already. Again,
Yeah.
why? There's a reason. Not because she found out about San Marcos on the website on Google Maps and looked at it. She got family down here in the area. They've been down here. She likes the area. She still wants to go warm, but not hot. And
Yeah.
so there's a reason, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what I tell kids all the time. But I also tell kids that there's over 1,000 opportunities to play college softball.
Yeah.
From JUCO 3 to NAIA 1, there's over 1,000 places. Every single one of them, the bases are 60 feet apart. Every single one of them, the pitcher circles, the rubber's 43 feet away. Every single one of them will allow you to be able to get an education, which at the end of the day is what's going to matter. They're all going to allow you to be able to make friendships that'll be lifetime friendships, because those are going to be the kids that you're still talking to 40 years from now. So you can't pigeonhole yourself into, well, I want to play college softball, but I only want to play at one of those 8 schools I see on TV at the end of the year, because those programs all have 21, 22 players at them. So there's 176 kids playing that are going to the World Series. That's it.
Yeah.
And I understand. Believe me, I've been there 6 times. I wish every kid who played softball, every little girl who played softball got to play in the College World Series, because it's the neatest thing there is. I'm sure the Olympics are grand and it, again, but we're talking about 15. But getting a chance to play in front of 13,000 people in that stadium and that atmosphere is electric. But it's not going to happen because go back and look at the history in the last 20 years and tell me how many teams have made it to the College World Series.
Right.
There's not many. So don't put it on that. Put it on getting your education, giving yourself an opportunity to get on the field as soon as humanly possible, where they've got your degree so that you can get an education. And by all means, learn the coaches and find out, because I get tired of hearing, well, that's not what it was like when you recruited me, because that's our fault, because coaches don't do a good job. They're selling you a car. They're used car salesmen. They tell you what you want to hear. And that's not fair to the families, and that's not fair to the travel ball coaches, and that's not fair to the kids, and it's stupid for our reputation. That's why I've always been 100% honest, because I'm not jeopardizing my reputation by telling the kid, oh, you come here, you're going to play shortstop. Because you may not ever play shortstop here, because you may not be the best shortstop. But I'm not going to sell you and get you to come to Texas State because your mom and dad and you all believed me when I told you were going to play shortstop for 4 years. It's just not going to happen. So I just think kids need to get to camp. They need to get to know. They need to talk to people. You guys do a really good job of knowing coaches and who's feeding people a line of bull and who's not.
Yeah.
And
well, you said it. You spent a lot of time in Arizona, and everybody out here have kids that have played for you. Speaking of that pitcher, just so you know, and I hadn't even told you this yet, but that kid plays in my org now.
Gotcha.
Plays for one of my teams.
Okay.
So I was really excited to hear that. When it comes to rankings and leaderboards and this All-American game, how much attention does Scott Woodard and Texas State pay attention to that?
Well, I think we always look at it because we never have anybody on it. Again, there are people who I trust.
Yep.
And I'll mention it because I think he does. I think everything that the Allisters do is legit, because I think they work their ass off at doing it right, and they evaluate, and they're in the bleachers and they watch kids, and they, so if Derek Allister calls me and tells me and recommends a kid that he's seen in the area, or a kid that happens to mention to him that he's interested in Texas State, I would take that hook, line, and sinker, because I trust the man. Most of what I read, because I was taught a long time ago not to believe anything that I read, I don't worry about, because, again, that's somebody else's ranking. Sure. And that's somebody else telling somebody and them putting credence in somebody who told them something. So if I don't know where all that information came from and how that evaluation got made, I don't put a lot of stock in it. I get an opportunity to see enough kids that I know whether a kid can play or not. Like I said, at our level, when we're competing against A&M, Baylor, and Texas right off the bat, we're not getting that 5-star kid, that kid who's making all the rankings and in the top 20 or whatever anyway, because Texas State isn't a good enough product for them. So then when you start moving down, then you start looking at kids that are all very similar. So I'm looking for intangibles, and that's where how you throw, how you handle 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts, because you're going to strike out 3 times, I promise you. How you handle the runner in scoring position with the game on the line. What program you came out of. Did you come out of a culture where you're used to winning, or did you come out of a culture where you only worried about what your stats look like and your mom and dad are posting all your stats after every game? And those are all intangibles, and that sways, the meter to one side or the other.
Speaking of posting,
well, the last piece about this, Randy, that I think is more than anything else, I want kids that want to be here. I don't want to have to convince you to come to Texas State. I didn't want to have to convince you to come to Arizona State. I didn't want to have to convince you to come to Auburn. I didn't want to have to convince you to come to UAB. I could tell within, 98% when a kid left campus whether they were coming or not. They were engaged. They were all in. They asked questions. If mom and dad did all the question and answering, and all they did was sit over there and shake their head, we weren't getting them because they weren't invested. They really didn't care.
Yeah.
They were looking to go somewhere else. So, we want kids that want to be at Texas State. And again, if you want to be at Texas State, there's a good chance you're going to stay at Texas State because we do things the right way.
Yeah. Well, I can attest to that. I mean, obviously, I have I've known you for a long time and have had firsthand knowledge on how you coach and how you treat your players. A couple other things. When you talk about posting, what platforms do you use? I've been telling a lot of our kids for sure they have to have an X or a Twitter account. I think it's important, but is can they overdo it in your opinion? And tagging or no tagging coaches?
I think it's great because again, it shows interest. You know, if I see a kid that I've looked at and that I have notes on, or now I've got everything. I've moved up in the world. I actually have computerized stuff.
Uh-oh.
Um, through our compliance system, they have their own boards and stars and the whole thing. So I've got kind of a makeshift thing that I do. But if you ain't tagging me, then I don't need to worry about you because we're not even on your radar. And I'm never going to convince you to be on the radar until you figure out that those people that you were tagging, when September 1st comes, the phone call doesn't happen.
Yep.
Well, now you better be a really special player to call me now and go, oh, well, coach, I've really been interested in Texas State the whole time. I just don't know why you didn't call me. Well, I do
Yeah.
because you didn't do a good job and you had the opportunity, because I follow all of them. I try not to put a lot of information out there. And obviously until September 1st, I can't do anything but like stuff anyway.
Right.
But
Right.
if you link me to something and it's somebody I'm interested in, I'm liking it because I want you to know, yeah, I saw it. Yeah, I know you put me on there. And I think that's important because the kid needs to know too who's interested and who's not. Because you know as well as I do, Randy, when September 1st comes, it's an arm race now.
Yeah.
It pisses me off a little bit. I wish we would have, again, we fought like crazy to get away from recruiting 8th graders. No problem. I was as guilty as everybody, but I had to be because I was at places where I had to get them.
Right.
But I wish we would have given everyone a year. Your sophomore year, get your phone calls, get your talks, get your who's interested, get your camps. Your junior year, figure out where you're going to go on your 5 visits. Now you can go on 100 of them, which has really screwed us. And then make your decision. Not September 1st. I'm on campus September 2nd, and I'm making a decision on September 3rd because people have been cheating there too.
Yeah. And there's so much more pressure when you've gotten, however many calls you
Right.
got, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, this offer's out there, but if you don't let us know, or it's actually, hey, take as long as you like, and we'll let you know when we're moving on, and that seems to happen pretty quickly.
Well, and I agree, and that's a tough. There's a fine
It's a
line
lot of
there.
pressure.
There's a fine line
Yeah,
for both of us. It's
yeah. Well, you got a job to do.
right.
You got to build a program, and you got to know when to move on. But kids can be indecisive, and again, I think it's just a lot of pressure for them.
Well, and now we've opened it up to where you can have unlimited visits. So now all of a sudden, we got a pitcher that's coming in our 24 class that kept us online till June of last year from January.
Yeah.
And we called her numerous times and told her we were moving on. And that if we didn't find anybody, the offer was still there and that we would call her if we had made an offer to somebody else because we knew she was looking for a Power 5 deal. We knew that the travel ball coach was pushing a Power 5. We knew she was going to Power 5 camps. We knew that. And that's all fine and dandy, but at the same time, we're going to get stuck without a 24 pitcher if we wait.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying. It's pushed everybody into now fanatic mode where everybody's got to be scrambling and everybody's freaking out. And, especially it's not those top 20 people. They're getting the kids they want.
Right.
It's the rest of us.
And they're getting them out of the portal.
Yeah, we're going in the portal. Right. But we're not kin to that either. I think they've made some rules there that have hurt us because if a kid comes to your school and you put them on scholarship and then they decide they're not playing, you eat it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Ricky's like, I'm not taking a chance on that. And I'm like, well, if we know the kid and we've already recruited him and we know, again, the culture and the type that we're looking for, we shouldn't have to worry about that. But at the same time, what if a kid goes, yeah, I'm burnt out, but hey, I can get my school paid for and I can just go ahead and stay here and finish. You guys eat it. So.
Yeah. When you real quick back to the tagging piece, tagging, I mean, obviously you don't want a kid to tag, have to do 50 different posts every time for 50 different schools. But if it's a Texas State, a Baylor, if you're all in the same one, does that bother you guys at all?
No.
No. Okay.
Because again,
I
I,
was always
I want to
curious
know
about that.
who
You're
you're
competing with?
interested in, because I talked to Baylor and I talked to Texas and I talked to Texas A&M, and I can find out whether they're interested or not too. It doesn't take long to find out. Hey, are you guys going to be on this kid or not? You know,
Yeah.
she's
That's good.
she's down our list a little bit, or whatever, and fine, then it's worth the call.
Yeah.
They say, yeah, she's definitely high on our list, and I know who most of those kids are. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't have to. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out, those kids coming out of the Bombers and coming out of the Impact Golds with Jazz. I mean, I understand that. That
Yeah.
those are the best kids down here, and those kids are all going to get Power Five offers, and so we got to wade through. We had another arm that came out of the Barbers Hill area with where Jess and Chandler Hall. Well, our Ricky's gotten all her really good ones. She loved us. I mean, but at the end, in tears, I got a chance to play in the SEC. I'm like, I've been there. I understand. you know, I,
Yeah.
I don't blame you. I didn't come to Texas State when I was at Auburn. I promise you.
Yeah.
You know,
How much different is it down there? What as far as compared to, the Pac-12 or
you just don't have as many bells and whistles, Randy. That's the big thing. When
really?
we go to fly, we go to the airport in Austin and get on a commercial flight and wait in line. The SEC, you just went on the tarmac and got in your plane.
Yeah.
So, and I know most of the
Yeah.
pack isn't, hasn't invested money that way, but the good teams in the ACC, the good teams in the Big 12, the good team, they're not waiting in commercial flight lines, and the rest of it, we have a good contract with Marucci. We went to Marucci this year because the girl that I worked with when I was at Arizona State and Auburn took over from Wilson DeMarini and went to Marucci and started the softball line. And I've known her for a long time, and she gave us a good deal. And so we have all the stuff we need. I mean, no kid has to buy anything to wear or travel or play in, or we've got all that stuff.
Yeah.
We probably don't have as lavish. I mean, I'm not sure we're staying in 5-star hotels, and we still have a budget where we have to make ends meet, but we stay two to a room, and everybody gets their own bed and things that I definitely wasn't privy to prior to going to Arizona State. I promise you. So, I got
Yeah.
somebody to do the field. I don't have to do the field.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, this has been a great call. Before we wrap up, Scott, is there well, let me ask you this too. What can travel ball? Because um there's some really good teams in the Southeast.
Mhm.
And I think travel ball as a whole is like, I think everybody, the whole game's getting better. You said it earlier.
Yes.
But what can people from Arizona, what can a guy like me or another travel ball coach learn from the South style of softball? Is there anything that stands out to you?
No, I don't think so. The biggest thing to me, Randy, was like when I got to Auburn, I went into Atlanta obviously because we had no kids on our roster from Atlanta, Georgia, and it was 100 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, this makes no sense. And obviously at that time, I didn't know a lot, but I knew the East Cobb Bullets, the Vipers. I mean, I knew there was some people. So just getting in there, what I found out extremely quick was there's a million athletes. That was the biggest difference. You know, there wasn't a lot of organizations that were very good because they didn't have very good coaching. Georgia Impact would have been another one.
Yep.
But there were athletes everywhere, and again, I think that's when you look at the SEC and the Southeast in general, that's why their athletics are so good and why football is so amazing because there's a million athletes down there I mean, like in Arizona and New Mexico, if you went to a little town, that was a small school, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You probably wouldn't find any. You'd be lucky to find one every once in a while. In the Southeast, man, you can run into a little town that may have one stoplight and they got three families that were all related, that have brothers and sisters, and there may be seven great athletes at this little dinky school, you know?
Mm.
So to me, that was a heaven thing because it was like they're not inundated with all this stuff that people are telling them. Their parents aren't inundated with all the propaganda, and have to go play for this guy and have to play for them, and I'm going to pay for this, and you're going to pay for that, and and we were going to be able to teach them what we wanted them to learn, and they were going to be
Yeah.
hungry because they wanted to play and they weren't getting an opportunity to play and travel and go all them fancy places and get to be seen by all those coaches. And I was like, man, this is a gold mine right here.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of people recruiting down here. Because even the SEC, I mean, if you think about it, most of them were still flying to the West Coast.
Yep.
And I'm like, man, there's kids down here that we're going to be able to steal for nothing. They're going to be really good athletes. And again, within 2 years, we're in Oklahoma City because there were a lot of good kids even on that Auburn team that just hadn't been developed at the level that we were developing people. So I'm really impressed, though. Again, nationwide, man. Like you said, you can go all the way to the Rhode Island Thunder. You can go to the Mojo. Rocky's doing a great job in Birmingham. You can go all the way down on the Florida coast and go all the way down to the Gold Coast Hurricanes. And there's a lot of good players now all over the country, and it's made our jobs a little easier to ID. But then you have to wade through. I've jumped teams. How much
Yeah.
influx mom and dad are having, and again, man, I you don't have that in the male world. We teach our boys to grow up and to handle their own matters, and for some reason, moms and dads want to be all in the daughter's business and speaking for them and coming on visits and asking all the questions. And I'm like, you have to let them do their thing. They have to be human. They have to do, we tell them when they come on their official visit, do not fill out one piece of paperwork. Do not fill out one form. Do not fill out one deposit. Do not fill out one housing application. Make them do everything
Yeah.
because they will not make it here if they are led by you in everything that they do. It won't happen. So, again, the intangibles, finding out all that stuff behind the scenes. Daddy's carrying your bag after the game. That's probably not a good sign. I'm probably writing you off. You got to be able to take your
People
own.
don't believe us when we tell
I
them that.
know. I know.
They don't believe
Yep,
us.
exactly.
One of the first questions I get asked sometimes is, "Hey, who's that kid's parent?" And people
Exactly.
don't believe me. People don't believe
Yeah.
me. So I'm glad you said it.
Yep.
Do you ever just coach? Like, do you have a preferred? Not do you have a preferred? Would you caution on recruiting a really good, talented player from a newer coach, like a newer guy that's coming up?
Yes. Again, I'm making my IDs and my evaluations and my own determination of an athlete. If they're playing for a new person that I don't know, it probably doesn't affect me with the recruit or the kid themselves. But I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to be real cautious about how I'm being led, what I'm being told, how much interaction. Because truly, Randy, and I've told you this before, when it gets to the point where I get to September 1st, all I really want your involvement in is the phone number. That's really all I want.
Right. Right.
I understand that the parents have trust you, and especially kids that have played in your organization and that trust you. And that's why I have to have a two-way street with people that I trust because I know you're going to tell them the right thing.
Mhm.
I hate the involvement of the travel ball world into the financial piece, and they need to know how much you're offering, and they're going to be the bargain person. They're going to be the agent. No, I don't need any of that
Yeah.
because you're not going to be there at the end. You're not going to be there when they get here. You're not going to still be a part of it then. If the
Mhm.
parents want to keep asking you questions and want to keep referring to you to find out things, fine, because I know what you're going to tell them. So that's where it would
Yeah.
be a little tricky is what's this guy that I don't know telling this athlete and how am I going to convince them that I'm being honest and I'm not like all the other people out there who are going to tell you what you want to hear. And then you're going to get there and go, man, mom, this was nothing like I was told it was going to be. My coach is nothing like that. And I'm like, again, I'm going to be exactly how I was every time I talked to you and every time I saw you and every time because that's who I am. And I've been there. I've had kids. My kids were recruited. I've been a coach. I coached at that level for a few years. I understand the whole picture and I can't be anybody but who I am and be honest because at the end of the day, that's all this has been about for me.
Yeah.
I just want kids at the end of their career to have enjoyed it, to be ready to go to the real world and make a difference and know that what we do is a game. It's not life. It's not work. They're all 3 4 letter words, but they're all different. And at the end of the day, and you hear it doesn't define you. Being a softball player is not going to define who you are.
Yeah.
So I just want to get you ready for the real world because it's a tough sucker. The
It
world is
is.
tough, and oh well, softball's like it gets you ready because of failure. It makes you understand that everything's not going to go your way. It makes you understand that you may not get the job that you wanted. You may understand that somebody else may get to do things that you don't get to do. All those things help you deal with those things, but they're not those things. All we're trying to do is prepare you for that.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. My daughter Taylor was having some problems at work with a boss or a coworker, and I said, "So, what do you like?" Because it sounded like a pretty nasty
Hmm.
interaction, and I said, "Well, what did you do?" She's like, "I played for Ann Pearson for 4 years. I can handle
Right.
this lady."
Right. Yeah.
So, and I love that about this game and about my kids and kids that I have in my program for the future going forward to be able to play for people like you and for like Coach Pearson. Scott, you've been great, man. You've always been the same guy. Every single time I see you at the field, every single time I've ever called or reached out, you've always been a good friend and a mentor to me. I appreciate you coming out. One more thing before we go: is there anything else you want to put out there? Any message you want out there for the kids or for the families?
Well, again, kudos back to you because you've always done it the right way. For you, it's always been about the athlete, and it's not personal gain for you. It's not you're doing this because you want to do things the right way. And you know, for anybody that ends up watching this man's organization, they do things the right way, and your child's going to be given the opportunity to play and be coached. And I can't say that about a lot of people. And again, I'm getting to the last few holes of my career, and I don't have to worry about who I make mad anymore. So, um, you know, I think there are people who do it right, but again, it's just like everything else in this world. You find people that you trust, you honor them, that you trust their word, and you know that they're going to be truthful and that they're going to do things and say things that are right, and those are the people you hold on to.
Appreciate that, Scott. We got to do this again because there are so many other things I wanted to talk to you about. about your past coaching stints and the people that you were around. I think what you gave me early on in this talk has been awesome, and I hope that we can talk about some of those things in the future. I'm going to wrap this up, and I want to thank Coach Woodard for coming on. If you have enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Uh, Caught up with Randy Kaye. You can also find me at the handle at Coach KAZ on all of our social media handles with the same at Coach KAZ. So I appreciate it, Scott. Thank you again for coming on. Please say hi to Coach Ricky for me, and I'll look forward to doing this again soon.
Anytime, Randy. You know how I'd like it.
Appreciate it, man.